Hello everybody, welcome to That's Football. Good to be back after a few days break. We've got Manchester City against Newcastle watch-along coming up for you this evening. But of course, I'm here to talk about the Mason Greenwood situation. It would be very easy for me to do this on the United stand because he's a Manchester United player. But I decided to do it on That's Football because you know what? This is a football decision, and I think it could be another Premier League club and we'd all have an opinion on it. Also, the thing that's frustrated me the most as a Manchester United fan, and I think I've played my part in this and I'm open enough to talk about it, is that the Manchester United, the name, whatever you think about it as a rivalry, Manchester United, the name means something in world football. Whether that goes back to winning trebles, Sir Alex Ferguson, whether it goes back to Sir Bobby Charlton, George Best, Dennis Law, goes back to the Munich tragedy. Manchester United in the world of football, just not in England, means something. It has a reputation, it has an integrity to it. I think the way that Man United have handled this Mason Greenwood situation is disgusting and drags the name through, drags that great name down. And I think that is something that's frustrated a lot of people. Of course, there's the very serious issues of what Mason Greenwood is linked to. Obviously, he's not proven guilty of because it didn't go to court, but people have heard the audio, they've seen the pictures, and they're out there. Man United and I'm interested to see the comments on this because I think that I put a tweet out a couple of weeks ago and I got a lot of abuse for it. I was called a rapist sympathiser and all sorts of stuff, which shows you the opinions of rival fans, which is why I wanted to put it on here because as a Man United fan, we've been talking about this on the United stand for a long time. So we are a football club that we don't want to be. We're owned by people we don't want to own us. They are mercenary. They are not football fans. And that's the same in the board and in other areas of the football club. It's about money. It's about facilitating the Glazers to make money. And I think United fans a long time ago knew that when Man United didn't get rid of Mason Greenwood straight away, they were looking for a way to bring him back because he has a value. He's got 2 years on his contract. He was a good footballer. I've always said if he was from the youth and he wasn't that good, he'd be gone. But because he's a good player with a talent, you know, I described him as a footballer, as a generational talent before all this came out. You know, there's no doubting his talent. That's not what I'm here to discuss. But in the fan base, we always were, well, they're not going to get rid of him because he's got a value. So when I tweeted, I think the most logical thing to do is for him to go on loan for a year to avoid the, shit show backlash that would come out. And then maybe in a year's time, he's done well on loan and you sell him and make some money. That's not my decision and it's not United fans' decision as a director of football or as a CEO. That was just an interpretation of what our club is. And I apologise for that tweet in the sense that it was misread by people who don't watch the United stand. But that people who watch the United stand or are in the United fan base would completely understand where I was coming from. Because unfortunately, we live under this cloud of assumption that everything we do at that football club is immoral and is about money. So a lot of United fans don't want Greenwood back, but we're like, just send him off on loan to another country. He does okay. You sell him in a year's time. That's not what I want. That's not what a lot of people want. There are a lot of United fans that just want him back in the first team. We have to acknowledge that, and I'm sure some of you do as well. So what United were looking to do was not loan him. They were looking to bring him back. And countless stories over the last few days have said that, Richard Arnold, the CEO, had even apparently filmed an explanation video on Mason Greenwood that was due to be aired next week, explaining why they were bringing him back. There was a statement from the club earlier this week about, they've done a thorough investigation and they've got to look after Mason and they've got to look after his partner and they've got to look at everything. And it very much felt, and from things I'd heard, and I'm sure you'd read in the media as well, that he was going to be brought back, and that was the decision that Richard Arnold and Manchester United had made as the CEO. In the last few hours, we're now hearing that United have made a U-turn due to the backlash from within the fan base, which I applaud because it's not. There's people there going, shut up, you're in the minority in the fan base if you don't want Greenwood back. Like this is some sort of Brexit vote. If you have 20% of your fan base that are absolutely against it, then you have to listen to that. You don't just go, well, 80% win. That's not how it works. And on top of that, I'm talking to a lot of non-United fans at the moment. I mean, when you go to the Emirates or the Etihad or Anfield or Goodison Park, and the noise that will be against that player. You can't just go, well, it's just what Man United fans think, screw the rest, because then you're going back to the reputation of this football club in the mud as we go around all the away grounds and it's an absolute toxic mess aimed at that player, which it will be. There will be. You know what the court of opinion's like. So United have apparently done a U-turn, and it'll be interesting to see what happens next. Look, the bottom line is I'm interested to see what people say in the comments. I think that I remember when this came out, and I might have done a video on this channel, or I might have done it on the United Stand, and I said, look, I've got experience of the legal system, and if I'm down the pub last night and I punch someone in the face, which I wouldn't do, and they don't take it to court, did I punch them in the face because I didn't get found guilty? Oh, I did punch him in the face. So the court of opinion, we're not in the court of law, we're in the court of opinion here. And people have seen the pictures and people have seen the audio. There's never been an article saying that was faked or, done to get him in trouble. That's never come out. And I would say if it was going to come out, why hasn't it come out? So if it comes out later, I don't think people would believe that anyway. It's in the court of public opinion, and some people are not comfortable with that. I think Manchester United have got to make a U-turn on this, and ultimately they've got to bite the bullet financially. They're going to have to remove him from the team. They're going to have to move him from the football club. I think that's what will happen because of the weight of noise. And the interesting thing about this is it's the weight of noise within the United fan base that's changed this. From what we hear, United were willing to push this. They were willing to go all around the country and face the backlash of away fans and rival fans. They were willing to face the backlash of the media as long as they had the fans on board of the club, which is a big assumption and is massively naive and is massively unfair because it still damages reputation of Manchester United Football Club. But it was almost like we don't really care as long as we've got the brands and the sponsors and the fans on board. And what's caused the U-turn is that I think they can't, there was even talk that United had drawn up a list of what they expected to happen. So rival fans were going to lose their shit. Certain journalists would lose their shit, but sponsors were on board. Certain fan groups were on board. And it was like assumptions either way. And they've completely misread the room. So, look, it's interesting if they have done a U-turn. Personally, and I will give my personal opinion, I just don't know what they were thinking. And I've said this before about politicians. They make stupid decisions. There's a public outcry and they lose their job. And I think this is so severe. Even if you want Mason Greenwood back, you must acknowledge what a mess Man United have made of it. Were they literally just going to say he's back? Like that, even the most adamant he should return Greenwood fan would acknowledge that wasn't the way to do it. Like, they've completely misread the room. And I think that you start with the CEO. I'd love the Glazers to go, but you start with the CEO. It's a very sensitive topic. There's a Women's World Cup final tomorrow. The timing of this is ridiculous. And they've completely misread the room. They've completely misread the room. They've completely dragged the club through the mud. Look, I'm not shy enough or cowardly enough to not acknowledge that there's somebody else involved in this. If I was Mason Greenwood, I don't know whether he's got the intelligence to acknowledge it, but I would be absolutely fuming because he was probably thinking he was coming back, and now he's probably thinking I've got next to no chance. I'd be fuming with the club. I'd be saying that, look, I'm not saying I ever was going to come back, but the way you've tried to do it, it's just arrogant and stupid, and it was never going to work. So look, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but my feeling with it now is that I couldn't give a shit about the Glazers' financial restrictions. At the end of the day, if he goes off and scores goals for another club, I think, that's that club's problem. And I hope that club get the scrutiny that we do. On the other hand, I do agree with rehabilitation. It's at the core of my principles. It might not be at the core of yours. And in that belief, I don't think he should never be allowed to play football again. I just don't think he should be allowed to just come back to Man United and operate as normal. I think that there has to be, there has to morally be some sort of removal, of course. And if he goes and plays somewhere else, he goes and plays somewhere else. But Manchester United is where my focus is here. And I just think that the way they've handled this is so badly. And you wonder who. The terrifying thing is, it's not my job to scrutinise Liverpool or Man City or Newcastle, but I'd almost not expect them to have done this. It terrifies me the people Man United have at the club. The biggest thing is that they're completely out of touch. As I say, I think they've discarded what general football thinks, what some of you will think. No, they're not interested. You're not United fans. But they've completely misread the room on United fans. Like, they've completely got it wrong. And how scary is that when you've got people running your football club who've got no clue about the identity of that football club? I mean, they did it with the Super League. That's completely different. But they've got no... Well, I like to say they've got no clue. Or is it even worse? They don't care. The custodians of that football club is sickening for many reasons. And I think on a very serious issue, they've gone sickening to a new low in a new way. And that's my stance on it. And I just hope now Man United stop messing around and just come out with a big statement. And look, if it's going to cost you 20 million to pay him off, you pay him off. I mean, they're going to have to do that now. Some people would moan and say he doesn't deserve that money, but ultimately he's under contract and there is no legal charge there. So maybe that's what you do. But I find myself stunned this morning about how badly Manchester United have handled it. And I'm interested to see what your comments are. Get your comments in below. And don't forget, we have got a watch along for you tonight. Please do subscribe to the channel, by the way. We are very close to 1 million subscribers, shifting the mood a little bit. 1 million subscribers on this channel is unbelievable. It's for content like we've just discussed there, really. I mean, I retweeted a tweet earlier from somebody who basically said, you know, you get all these ex-players, you get all these people coming out talking about, you know, virtue signalling about all this stuff, and they won't say anything about anything like this. And they have an opinion on it, but they won't say anything about it because they've probably been told not to by their advisors, or they probably have a different opinion on it. I don't know. So thank you to everyone who does leave a comment on it, because whatever that comment is, as long as it's not abusive, I don't want to see that. There will be different sides to it, and that should be always allowed. Yeah. Also, don't forget the podcast. This week's podcast is out. You might have forgotten about it. Our brand new podcast, Goldbridge Saves Football. Really good episode this week. Loads of big things. You might have seen a couple of teaser clips that we put up about underrated player in the Premier League, overrated Premier League player, people leaving early from football grounds, book titles that will never get written, which was a running theme, and a bit of a talk about Chelsea and a few other bits as well. Links in the video description for that. Please support the podcast. It's brand new out, and there's 2 episodes for you to listen to now if you've not listened to any. Really, really good. Check that out. Support this outlet, because you're the ones who make it what it is. Links in the chat for that. I'll see you for Newcastle versus Man City a bit later on. Of course, I'm going to be on the United stand first for Man United at Spurs. Enjoy your Saturday. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for putting your comments in.